That's Nick.
Yes.
Misevich.
7 o'clock.
All right. You ready to go, Jeff? I assume
I'm not ready
yes?
yet.
Oh, okay, sorry.
I'm all set, all set.
Okay.
All right, I'm going to call the meeting of the Finance Committee to order on January 19th, 2022. Now, Alderman Jettie is the temporary clerk. Will address the clerk's position as soon as we do the roll call. So I'll ask Alderman Jettie to do the roll call.
Okay, Alderman Clee,
Here?
Alderman Kathy,
Present.
He has to speak.
since you're in Zoom, I think you have to state that you're,
You have to state,
Oh.
you're supposed to state why you're absent and if there's anyone with you.
Oh, yeah, sorry. I am present via Zoom, and there is no one else in the room with me.
The reason why.
Pardon?
We need to know why.
You're supposed to say why you're not present personally. This is,
Oh.
under the right to know law.
Right, sorry, my apologies. I am not in attendance because I do not want to wear a mask.
okay, Alderman Como,
Present.
Alderman Gouveia,
Present.
Alderman Jettie is here, and Alderman at Large Timmons.
Here.
All right, so we have a quorum definitely. The first item of business is to select a clerk of the committee. Alderwoman Clee is the vice chair. Alderman Jettie kindly has volunteered for that job, which we usually draw straws, and whoever gets the shortest straw gets the job. But since Alderman Jettie has volunteered, unless someone has a serious problem with that, I suggest we accept his kind offer. Seems
I'll
like-
nominate Alderman Jettie for clerk.
All right, so by unanimous consent, we'll
I think we have to do a call because of Alderman
all right,
Kathy's-
so the motion by Alderwoman Clee is to elect Alderman Jettie as the clerk. Mr. Jettie, would you please call the roll?
Okay, Alderman Clee,
Yes.
Alderman Kathy,
Yes.
Alderman Como,
Yes.
Alderman Gouveia,
Yes.
Alderman Jettie votes yes, Alderman at Large Timmons.
Yes.
And I vote yes. So Alderman Jettie will be the clerk. Now, next item on the agenda is public comment. Is there anyone from the public who wishes to address the committee? Apparently not. So I wanted to ask the committee about a couple of items, procedural items. First of all, we have been meeting at 7 o'clock for a long time. I just threw out the question, would you prefer to meet earlier, 6:30? There's nothing that says exactly what time we have to meet, but if people prefer 7, fine. But if you prefer something earlier, you get home a little earlier, we could do that as well. Alderwoman Timmons.
Thank you, Mayor. I prefer earlier, 6 o'clock. I think is a good time and we can get out earlier. A lot of us work in the morning and the earlier the better.
Alderwoman Clee.
I hate to be the person of dissension, but the truth is that with my obligation in the State House, right now, we would be meeting house-wise on Wednesdays, Thursdays,
So
possibly
you might
Fridays.
not.
So I'm not really for that. I could probably maybe acquiesce to 6:30, but it could be tight at sometimes, but I
All right.
could not go to 6 o'clock.
So you're saying because of your house duties, 7
Yeah.
o'clock is really better?
Yeah.
Well, maybe we will take it up again then once the session is over. All right,
Well,
I don't want to inconvenience any.
Alderman Como also.
Alderman
I
Como.
just wanted to say also, initially my thought was that I had no real preference, but in looking at my schedule, my son plays a lot of high school sports that get out around 6:30, and I like to attend as many of them as possible, so 7 has less of a conflict with that when he's still in sports. When there's no sports, then I'm a lot more flexible.
That's fine, and the tradition has been 7 for many years, so with 2 objections, why don't we just leave it at 7? All right, number 2, this is an item that we haven't really raised before. You see tonight's a pretty short agenda, 4 items, and we typically, and I suspect tonight, although I'm not sure, we usually have someone come in on each of these items to give you more explanation than is in the memo. But many of the memos are self-explanatory. Now, in the years before I was mayor, I was on the Board of Aldermen and on the Finance Committee. The position of the mayor at that time was that staff members should not be inconvenienced and would not come to the Finance Committee at all. And in my years on the Finance Committee, only once do I recall that any member of the staff ever came in, and that had to do with the committee's refusal to approve a purchase unless it was equipment, unless the equipment manager came in. It was a kind of a standoff for about a month, but finally that person came in, offered the explanation, we approved the purchase. So my policy was the reverse. Have someone come in on every contract, but I have heard some comments from some of the directors that there are a lot of night meetings, tends to burn people out coming in, once, twice, 3 times a week in the evening, even if it's by Zoom. Here we've got Camille of Transit here personally at 7 o'clock. So I wanted, and I don't really have anything specific other than to ask the open question, is it really, if we have items where someone has a question, fine, we bring someone in. But if there are items where it seems no one's really got an issue, no one really has anything additional, to ask beyond what's in the memo, would it be possible to forego the division director or department director coming in to explain the item? Sorry. Now, Kelly Parkinson is on, right? Kelly? Ms.
Yes, she's
Parkinson?
here.
Are you here?
Yes, I'm here.
So, Ms. Parkinson is the purchasing manager, so she's here no matter what on all items and has an explanation, a basic explanation about everything, because she's prepared all this paperwork and, or has helped prepare it and understands each item. She would always be here. It's just like an additional person, like in the case of transit, Camille, who is the transit director. Her name is Camille Correa. We always have an additional person come in from the department. So my question is, what's your reaction to this dilemma or this issue? Should we continue to bring people in, or can we forego that time and again? Yes.
We do have 3 new people on this, and actually, obviously, Alderman Shardy's new to finance as well. The truth is, there are a lot of questions that get asked at the meeting. I personally think that it's something we could do on our own, homework-wise, and I had mentioned to, prior to the meeting, that if there's something that you learn, it might be something you want to ask, or you could share at the meeting, and so on. And unless I think it's something controversial, I agree. We because they come here, and they come to every meeting, and then they come to the Board of Aldermen, and every night our staff are at our meetings. So I agree with you unless others have an objection, a severe objection to it.
Alderman Jettie.
So, when I first think about this, it sounds like a good idea. I happen to be watching some other cities' councils and Board of Aldermen, and I noticed that some of them, I think it was Manchester, I'm not positive about that, but a lot of these items, they have what's called a consent agenda. So all the items are listed like they are for us. We get advance notice of all of these things. And in Manchester, the mayor is presides over the Board of Aldermen. And, she says something to the effect, okay, you've all seen the consent agenda, is there any objection to it? And if there's no objection, they just pass it. They just pass all the items at once. If there is an objection, then they take that, whatever item is objected to, they take that out and they pass the rest of them, and then the one that's objected to, they treat individually and hear discussion about it, explanations or whatever. And so, I thought from the point of view of, economy and efficiency and time management, it seems like a good way of doing things. On the other hand, even before I became an alderman, when I would watch meetings, I would be disappointed when things were dealt with such haste. And I, thought to myself, gee, I have no idea what that was about. What happened there? So we as aldermen, of course, we, get to know these things. We become intimate with them, intimate with the details. And of course, when it goes before a committee, there's a committee discussion. But the public, if the public just tunes into the one meeting, they're really not aware. So I'm kind of conflicted as to, how important is it to inform the public about what we're doing, or is it up to the public to research it themselves? I'm not sure where I come down on that. The other thought I had is that, most of us on this committee are new, except for Alderwoman Clee. And, we're kind of feeling our way through this right now.
Yeah.
And I think it would, I don't know if you're prepared to do this tonight, but it would be good for us to get a little bit of a primer on, what is the Finance Committee, what are our responsibilities, how closely are we supposed to look at these things? Like the record of expenditures, for example. It's a long list of items. And we just got that, we're brand new to the committee, we just got that last week. So I'm wondering if it might not be a good idea to, give us a couple of meetings to get our feet wet and get an understanding as to what our responsibilities are, and revisit this issue after that.
Yeah, that's fine. I'm not trying to cut off discussion, or I'm just trying to reach a happy medium between the previous approach. Staff never came, you never met them, and the staff is here on every item. Sometimes these agendas are fairly long, but maybe we should follow Alderman Jetty's suggestion, go through a couple of meetings and kind of, so you can get a sense of what's going on. Yes, Alderwoman Clee.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Alderman Jetty, may I ask, that wasn't out of Finance Committee, was it, that they did a consent?
It was the full board.
The full board, yeah. In the State House, we, if something passes a committee on no less than one dissenting, or actually two dissenting, it can go under what we call the committee conference, or just, consent, the consent calendar. And then we just do one vote, but that's because we have thousands. I would not want to do that because this is where all the work should be done. I would never want to see it happen here. And I'm not even sure I'd want to see it happen on the Board of Aldermen, simply because I think that we're only 5 or 6 versus 15. So I think especially with the new board, I agree that maybe at the beginning we should bring the staff on, but I think just like the 7 or 6:30 type thing, maybe revisit it in the 6 months period or something when people feel a little bit more comfortable.
Now, in terms of what is the Finance Committee, so most cities don't have Finance Committees. I mean, these are all budgeted items. So there's money behind all of this, right? So all the department is doing is spending money according to the budget. So in most cities, the departments have the right just to proceed given that they've already been appropriated the money to do these things. But in the Nashua City Charter, there's a requirement that the Finance Committee, and this is a charter mandated committee, that the charter requires that the Finance Committee approve city contracts. And so all of the contracts that the city enters, above $25,000 will come to you for approval, come to us for approval. And at certain times, if a contract gets amended, if it carries a certain financial increase, it will come in front of you as well, or you may receive a memo saying we amended this contract in such and such a way, but it didn't have a significant financial impact. So, I mean, that's the basic role of the committee. And you'll see tonight that we've got a few different purchases on the agenda. Now, does anybody have any questions about any of this?
I think Alderman Como had his hand up.
My glasses get so fogged up, I either put them on and I can't see you because my glasses are off, or I can't see you because I have them
I have to
on.
pull them right down to the tip of my nose and it doesn't work.
Don't be afraid to say, excuse me.
All right, well, let's just, yes, Alderman Jettie.
Yeah, I didn't know if you were recognizing Alderman Como or
No,
not.
it's fine.
So we're just, these items, they're pursuant to some other authorization from the budget or from, a vote of the Board of Aldermen. All we're doing is just approving the purchasing department's authorizing or seeking authorization to do what the aldermen have already told them to do?
Basically, yes. For example, the first item, this backhoe, is this, it's on, you see where it says that it's part of the SURF?
Yes.
SURF is a list of equipment purchases that the Board of Aldermen has approved for the year. SURF means Capital Equipment Reserve Fund. So this specific piece of equipment was in the budget. Now we're being asked to authorize the department, this being the school department, to go forward and do the purchase. Item number 2, but sometimes it's less specifically identified in a budget. For example, the next one, well, that's part of a capital project. So we approved this, this is a grant funded with a local match transit building improvement. This is one of the one of the items, and we are being asked to approve this within that transit construction project. Sometimes it's like at the wastewater treatment plant, a pump needs to be replaced, but it, might be in the budget as just in a more general way, equipment replacement or something like that. But why don't we learn by example as opposed to trying to come up with all the permutations. So the first item on the agenda is item by communication from Kelly Parkinson, Purchasing Manager, Alderman Jettie.
From Kelly Parkinson, Purchasing Manager, regarding Caterpillar backhoe loader in the amount not to exceed $123,900, funded from 81500 Vehicles/SURF School District. I move that we accept, place on file, and approve the purchase of the 2022 Caterpillar 420XE four-wheel drive backhoe loader in the amount of $123,900, which includes the trade-in value of the 2005 New Holland backhoe. Funding through Department 191 School Department, Fund 81500, Vehicles/Surf, by roll call.
All right, so there's a motion to approve this. Now, I've said that there's someone here on all these items, but I don't know about the school department.
Yes, Mr.
Are they,
Smith
is there
here.
someone from the, oh, Sean Smith is here. This is Sean Smith, head of maintenance, buildings, everything at the school department. Please proceed, Mr. Smith.
Yes, to your early comments, about directors being out at nighttime, I'm happy to be out anytime, particularly when I'm asking for $123,000. But I mean, it's part of doing the job. You know, if we needed to explain things to the city fathers and mothers to get things passed, then that's what we do. But just to, long story short, we have a 2005 backhoe. It's seen much better days. It's on its last legs. We've had to pour thousands of dollars into it the last couple of years. And we did look at alternative backhoes, alternative manufacturers. But at the end of the day, I wanted to get a vehicle that I knew the public works could maintain. They have also standardized on Caterpillar, and they do most of our maintenance for us. And they actually suggested I check with Sourcewell, which is a nationwide consortium for purchasing this sort of thing. And we actually got the best price out of them. So I request that you approve this purchase.
Any questions? Alderman Como.
I just wanted to say that I was fortunate enough to have seen Mr. Smith do a much longer piece of testimony to the Board of Education when they approved this. And I agree with pretty much everything that he just said. The idea of standardizing the equipment so that Public Works can do maintenance on it with similar tools and parts to the equipment they already have makes a lot of sense. And I think, like most people, you get to a point with your personal vehicle where you realize it's costing you more to maintain and repair it than it would be to just upgrade it. And based on maintenance records over the last couple of years, I think that it does make a lot of sense to go ahead and make this upgrade.
Thank you. Anyone else? Alderman Govea.
Thank you. Yes, just one quick question. Just what is the primary use of what the Caterpillar would be used for? And then how many hours a year are we looking to put on this type of machine?
Okay, well, it gets used pretty much year round. A lot of earth movement. We're constantly digging holes where we spread a lot of bark mulch. Our athletic fields, we spread a lot of infield clay. During the winter time, we get a lot of use out of it. Not so much to plow, but after the aftermath of the storm, we have to move mounds of snow out of the way. So it gets used quite a bit. Honestly, I've never counted how many hours we use it. I really can't answer that question and be truthful in my answer.
Sure. Thank you. Have a follow-up?
Yes.
Thank you. And then just one follow-up. Is this something that would be better to lease a piece of equipment like this instead of buying? Is that an option you've looked at?
But we've done that. I didn't look at it in this case because it was already in the SURF program for purchase. When we got the New Holland backhoe, was actually used. So we really got more than our money's worth out of it. It lasted 17 years. We have two international trucks, which back when we purchased them, we didn't purchase it. We went through a lease purchase agreement. So it has been done before. Did not consider it in this case.
Okay. Thank you.
Anyone else? All right.
Alderman Kathy.
Alderman Kathy, are you seeking to ask a question?
I am. I actually have a procedural question and then a question related specifically to the item that is being addressed right now.
Okay, go ahead.
You mentioned earlier that there's a list of vehicles that's already approved, right? So the budget and the aldermen have already approved this list of vehicles that we're buying, correct?
Correct.
in an instance like this, or an instance similar, procedurally, what if we voted no? What would happen?
Well, that's a good question. The previous administration argued that the Finance Committee actually has only jurisdiction over the issue of whether purchasing guidelines were followed, and that there's no discretion to decline to execute, go forward on the contract, except if purchasing guidelines had not been followed. However, looking at that myself, I don't really agree. I think that that's not really in the law anywhere. So I think the legal department kind of disagrees. They sort of lean towards the previous position, but as I review the law, it says you have to approve contracts, but it doesn't say you're limited, it doesn't say why we would not approve them. So at least my reading of the situation is if the Finance Committee refused to go forward, probably we couldn't proceed, and the purchase contract, whatever, not be, executed, or the purchase not made. But you would create a legal issue, and,
Right. So essentially, if we were to vote no on items similar to this one, we'd have this money sitting around in the budget, and it would essentially be kicked back to either the Budget Review Committee or the Board of Aldermen as a whole, and then they would have to figure out what to do with either that money or how to procure a vehicle that is needed in the budget.
yes, although in this case, the only distinction I would draw is the SURF, but the SURF is a trust account, so it would sort of remain in this situation in the SURF trust account, but would remain unexpended until the Board of Aldermen decided what to do.
Okay.
This was, when I mentioned, when I was on the Finance Committee, this is how the issue of the committee, the appearances came up. So what happened was, there was the suggestion by Public Works that a 10-wheeler truck be purchased for the primary purpose of plowing in the wintertime. And a couple of members of the committee said, well, what about a 6-wheeler? Isn't that a more versatile vehicle? And the mayor said, well, no, it's not. This is for, the main roads, Amherst Street, et cetera, and, the 10-wheeler works the best. And the committee said, well, we'd like to hear that from the fleet manager. Well, fleet manager's not coming in. Okay. We refused the purchase. It went a couple of meetings, and then the fleet manager did come, and the fleet manager said, a 10-wheeler is actually better, and the committee approved the purchase of the 10-wheeler. So we took the position at that time that the Finance Committee had the right to turn down for any reason. But the accommodation was to bring the guy in. He answered our questions. We approved it. So you would create at least a legal issue. But there's certainly an argument that you have a right to turn anything down.
I appreciate you clarifying that. My main concern was when I'm thinking through these decisions, I want to make sure that I understand the second and third order effects of said decisions. Just because I like or don't like something, I don't want to vote yes or no. I'd like to understand what happens and what the process is. So I appreciate you clarifying that.
So for your own reference, the Finance Committee is defined by the city charter. So
I did read that, yeah.
You look to the city charter, and the role of the Finance Committee is determined there. And then there are some ordinances which also set forth the role of the Finance Committee. Read those. They're not very long. I forget where they are exactly. Read those.
5-90.
What?
It's NR
Section 5, right?
5-90.
And,
That's the authority of the Finance Committee, and then
122.
5-122 is the composition and duties thereof.
So if you read those, I don't see anything in there that limits the, you know, the discretion of the committee. Yes,
Thank you, Mr.
Alderman Como.
I don't want to put words in your mouth, so stop me if I get this wrong, but my layman's understanding of it was more or less that if it's in the budget, it's that we've given this department or entity permission in a very general sense. So in this case, for this item, we might have said something like, you have permission to buy a piece of equipment up to a certain amount of money. And what this specific piece that we're talking about tonight is, now they've done that thing that we gave them permission to, and we're approving or not approving the very specific actual purchase of this specific piece of equipment with an actual dollar amount.
That's one way of putting it, yes. Alderwoman Clee.
Thank you. I just want to clarify that one of the things is if it is a SURF item, that's approved separately. The SURF account items are approved individually. They're very specific as to what it is. By the time we purchase, it may change a little bit, but basically what it is we're going to buy. If we don't use that, expend that money, it stays within that account. It doesn't go back to the taxpayers, nothing else happens to it. It stays within that particular account. As far as the budget is concerned, when we go through the budget process, you'll see that each department comes forward, says what they need their money for. They usually give you a basic outline as to what they intend on buying and spending throughout that year. That a budget gets approved, or it gets amended, or something like that. So when they come forward and they ask for something that they did budget for, and we say, is it within your budget? In this particular case, as it usually is. And we say no to them. It may be because we think that they could do something a little bit better. Maybe they should do a trade-in or something else. Sometimes that's one of the questions that gets asked. But if you just say no because you want the money to go back to the taxpayers, you could be handicapping the city. So I don't think we should just say yes to everything, but make sure that you understand what the ramifications, and you can ask that question, if we don't purchase this, what is the alternative? As long as you kind of, weigh both sides.
All right, Alderman Como.
So we could, in theory, again, this is hypothetical just because this is our first meeting, we could, in theory, approve of the idea of the school department buying a piece of equipment and not necessarily agree with this specific purchase, and say, we think you could find a similar piece of equipment for less money, or, a better deal with better service contract or something like that, and deny this particular one and say, come back to us with a better offer and we'll approve it.
I think that would be possible, yes. Alderwoman Clee.
Thank you. I just want to make a clarification. As having been on this committee, one of the things that oftentimes they will come to us and they'll say they need this. And if we say you can get a better contract or look a little bit better, we literally could be putting them at a handicap. So for instance, when the fire department came for the trucks that they needed, if we had sent them back to go looking for it, we would have lost the deal that we had. And because we're in the period of COVID and everything is happening, prices are going up. So you really have to think really hard, unless you're an expert at it and you really know that. But I have seen where people have said, could we look at an electric version of this, of some sort, because in the general scheme of things. So those are particular things. I just want to be very cautious that we just don't say no and send everybody back to do more work when it could end up costing the city more in the end.
Alderwoman Timmons.
Yes, I have a question regarding this piece of equipment. One is that prior to coming to the Board of Aldermen, it was also approved by the Board of Education, right?
Correct.
Okay, and so therefore it was vetted at that particular time. Is that
I
correct?
believe that's correct. So this, you went to the Board of Ed with this, right?
Yes.
With that, Mr. Smith? Yeah, right. So this was approved by the Board of Ed, yes.
And that's why I recognize it, and that's why I'm going to vote for it, because I know it came up before, and I know the reputation of Mr. Smith as well, but I know it's been vetted already.
Anyone else?
Mr.
All right.
No, I'm sorry, Alderman Kathy has his hand raised.
Oh, he does? I can't see him.
Yeah.
Or- Yes, Alderman Kathy.
I have a financial technical question that maybe Alderman Clee could answer, because I know she was in finance before. Is it better to trade in the vehicle than to keep the vehicle on the books and utilize the depreciation of the asset?
Go ahead.
Thank you. In the past, both have been done, and each of the departments knows whether or not it's better to reuse that equipment as a backup. So sometimes Public Works, they won't necessarily retire or do a trade-in. Sometimes they'll use it either for parts, or sometimes they'll use it as the backup. So in other words, if one breaks down, they have this one kind of sitting at bay. And they may, an older one that they've kind of laid to do that, that might get traded in, or it could be scavenged for parts. But each department does everything differently, so those are good questions to ask that department.
Now, my only refinement of that would be the words depreciate the asset implies some kind of tax implication. We don't pay taxes, so it's just a practical decision. You know, is it better to get the money for the trade-in, or is it better to have a backup in case this one fails? You know,
I appreciate that clarification. Thank you.
Can we get Mr. Smith's answer?
Mr. Smith, on the issue of keeping the old one versus trade-in?
It's definitely time to get rid of it. As I said, I've spent considerable money keeping it running. We're looking at putting a lot more money into replacing the hydraulic system if we keep it. So this is definitely, I mean, I was very happy in the amount of money they were giving us for the trade-in. So it was, I could quick make the decision before they change their mind.
All right. Any other questions? All right, will the clerk please call the roll?
Alderman Clee,
Yes.
Alderman Kathy,
Yes.
Alderman Como,
Yes.
Alderman Gouveia,
Yes.
Alderman Jettie votes yes, Alderwoman Timmons,
Yes.
Mayor Donches.
Yes, motion passes.
7 yeas, 0 nays.
Next item on the agenda is a communication from Kelly Parkinson, Purchasing Manager. Alderman Jettie.
Regarding sewer line replacement and building repairs in the amount not to exceed $98,366 funded from 81200. Buildings and improvements, Federal Transit Administration, I think is the A in that. I'm sure we'll get an explanation. Grant funds, transit. I move to accept, place on file, and approve a grant-funded contract with Schroeder Construction Management to perform the replacement of the waste line and building repairs at the Nashua Transit Administration Building located at 11 Riverside Street in the amount of $98,366. Funding will be through Department 186 Transportation Fund, account 81200, Buildings and Improvements, FTA grant funds, by roll call.
And this is Camille Carrera, who's the Transit Director. And just in context, this is part of a $1.3, $1.4 million reconstruction of the transit building.
This one is for Schroeder Construction. The second one has to do with the retrofit project.
Okay. Well, anyway, go ahead and explain this, please.
Okay, great. Thank you. Good evening, Mr. Mayor and members of the committee. I'm Camille Correa, the Transit Administrator for Nashua Transit System. Just a little bit of background. We have a transit center located at 30 Elm Street, which is between the garage and City Hall. You'll see the buses pulse in and out right next door. The facility that we're speaking about this evening is our admin facility located at 11 Riverside Street. On the same property, we also have a maintenance facility, which is across the parking lot. The admin building was retrofitted approximately 2007, and shortly after it was retrofitted, they started having problems with the waste line. It's gotten to the point in the last couple of years that the clean out is used regularly to unstop the toilets. There's 4 toilets, and approximately at any time you could have 30 people on our side of the building. DPW is on the other side of the building, and they have a similar problem as well on a different internal sewer line tied into the external sewer line. And what we're finding is it's becoming more and more regular. And so we did secure a grant to assist to pay for the replacement of the waistline, which is internal. It is in the middle of the building. It goes through the kitchen, and then outside it ties into the sewer line. We are requesting the Finance Committee to approve a grant-funded contract. It is paid for by the Federal Transit Administration. It's an 80-20 grant, 80% Federal Transit Administration under capital, and 20% is local funds, which we already have secured in the NTS budget. With Schroeder Construction Management in the amount of $98,366 to perform the replacement of the waistline. As part of this project, they would also go into a portion of the wall, and the wall itself will remain intact. They would repair the wall. If they go into the wall, they will repair the concrete because they have to cut into it because it's part of the kitchen and the hallway, and also in the bathroom. And they will also replace the tile in the hallway, the kitchen, and then the laminate flooring in the bathrooms as all part of this price. We did go out for bid. We did receive 1 bid from Schroeder, and we did reach out to the other companies that, one did come to the pre-construction meeting, and we did reach out to them to find out why they did not bid on this project. And they said, number one is, companies said that it was because it was too large, and number 2, companies said they didn't have enough time. So it wasn't anything in particular in regards to the bid process itself. And I'm happy to entertain any questions that you might have regarding this project.
Alderwoman Clee.
Thank you. Just for clarification, when you said the 80-20, that means of the 98,000, about 19,600 will be paid by the city, and the rest would be paid by the grant. Is that correct? Or was there a
Yeah, so it
total
would be
amount
about
for the
20, but yeah, about 20,000.
A little less than
Yes.
20,000, yeah.
Mhm. Yes, ma'am.
And you said that that's already in the budget, within the approved budget for this?
For the, yes, and for NTS operating reserve, yes.
This was not scheduled, so would this be taking away from something else that was planned?
No, this was scheduled in advance. It's
Okay.
been in the works for quite some time, and we wanted to make sure that we had enough time to oversee the project because we have the transit retrofit project also occurring. But we don't want it to get to a point where it just stops working. And so we do want to move forward with the project because it does shut down the restrooms, the 4 restrooms, once or twice a week at times, sometimes more, sometimes less. It depends upon, we have a 2 flush rule. Make sure anytime you go into the restroom, you're trying to push the water through to help it along because it looks as though it's a
I
pitch
think that's
issue.
more than we need to know. You know?
Okay, just letting you know, just in case.
Just a quick follow-up, Mr. Mayor.
Yes.
So just for those that are listening and for all of us on the board, the expenditure to the city is less than the $20,000 to make sure that our things are moving
Yeah.
smoothly through the
Moving
system.
forward, yes.
So, yes, thank you.
You're welcome.
Anyone else? All right, could the clerk please call the roll?
Alderman Clee,
Yes,
Alderman Kathy,
Yes.
Alderman Como,
Yes.
Alderman Gouveia,
Yes.
Alderman Jettie votes yes, Alderwoman Timmons,
Yes.
Mayor Donches.
Yes,
7 yeas, 0 nays.
and the motion is approved. Thank you very much. And our next item is another communication from Kelly Parkinson, Purchasing Manager. Alderman Jettie.
Regarding transit retrofit engineering and construction oversight contract amendment number 1 in the amount not to exceed $116,866.69, funded from 53125 Construction Management Services FTA Grant Funds Transit. I move to accept, place on file, and approve a contract amendment with GPI, Greenman Peterson, Inc., and a contract extension date from March 2022 to June 30th, 2022 for resident engineering, construction, administration services, and architectural support and inspection in the amount not to exceed $116,866.69. Funding will be through Department 186 Transportation Fund, account 53125, Construction Management Services, FTA Grant Funds, by roll call.
Ms. Correa?
Thank you. A little bit of background regarding this project is we started the retrofit project in July of 2021. It was supposed to be completed in November of 2021. Due to unforeseen delays and also unforeseen construction issues that we had to make sure that we were within code, and also to change some design to make sure the inside of the building was ADA accessible. We have found that the project, because there's a portion of the project that's external, had to go into a winter shutdown in December per the New Hampshire law. The internal portion of the construction is still continuing. There's also some supply chain issues along the way that did delay some of the materials from coming in. So just overall with the project, it just got extended recently to May of 2022 for the contractor. Internally with the NTS staff, we do not have the engineering capabilities of overseeing the project. And so it was decided years ago that when they moved forward with this project, there would be engineering, construction administration, on-site oversight, and also architectural oversight, mechanical engineering oversight, all through a company that could assist us with that. GPI was chosen as the particular company of choice. And in order to complete this project, NTS is requesting that the current engineering firm that's providing this service, their contract is extended through June of 2022 because the contract with the contractor ends in May. It provides us the opportunity to finish all the paperwork that has to be done through the federal guidelines, the Davis-Bacon, make sure the certified payrolls are done and everything is lined up so that when we have our internal review from the Federal Transit Administration on this project, that we are able to just flow through all the documentation, make sure all the I's are dotted, T's are crossed, because we have that oversight in place. They're also on site to provide any liaising between the contractor and the architect on the internal as well as the external in regards to elevation, piping, manholes, catch basins, a lot of things that could be potentially having a question. In April of this year, the north side roadway and a portion of Garden Street will be under construction. So that whole area is going to look more like a plaza and enhance that area. So the sidewalks have been widened in some areas so far. And then when the winter shutdown has been completed, the north side sidewalks will be extended and the roadway asphalt replaced. Because if you were to walk between the garage and the middle of the transit center, you'll see that the asphalt's a bit on a wave. And so we want to make sure that we are supporting underneath the asphalt and then applying the correct amount of asphalt to support the weight of a bus. And if you have any questions, I'd be happy to entertain them.
Alderman Como.
Thank you. I have a couple of questions. First, you mentioned that the project was delayed due to some unforeseen circumstances. Can you tell us more about what those circumstances were?
Sure. There, on the inside of the building, as we were progressing, there was a column found in the middle of the building, which changed the design of the two bathrooms. The inside of the transit center, the portion that's not the waiting room, but the lobby and over, was gutted out so that the break room would change. There would be a driver's bathroom because prior to that, the drivers would share a bathroom with the public, and we wanted to make sure that there was an area where they could just come in and out through the break room. And to change the security provisions in regards to the bathrooms. So at one time, they had doors on them, and now it'll be more airport style, where you can go in and come out. And what was found at that time is that the design of the bathrooms had to change a little bit, or in some areas, quite a bit. And then a portion of what was in the bathroom, like the mop sink, had to be moved into another location. And so there were delays in regards to making sure that the design was right, that the dimensions are right, that the supplies could come in. And along the project, we're finding that there has to be a lot of communication between the contractor, the engineering firm, the city, and also the architect, just in general, to make sure everybody is moving along. So at times, whether it's internal or external, they found a gas pipe and also a 100-year-old sewer catch basin that was made out of brick that had to be removed. They had a cast iron pipe that took about 2 weeks to have DPW come in and remove that sewer line. It was huge, and workmanship of 100 years ago. So they had to pull it out with equipment and refill the line, or refill all the dirt and do all that work. So and there was also a foundation from a house, because when you look at the aerial of that area before the transit center was built, there used to be houses there, so they found a foundation. They had to dig all that up on the outside. And then they had to move some manholes and change some elevation. So just along the way, if we see something, then we have to get everything lined up to move to the next step, get everything lined up to move to the next step, and then here we are, winter shutdown. And so that's part of it. And I'm happy to go into more detail at some other time if you ever have any questions.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
And Mr. Mayor, more of a procedural question. During the reading, the clerk mentioned a couple of times in an amount not to exceed. So I imagine when this first came through for the initial 120 roughly thousand, it had similar language. So my question is, if we approve this tonight, what assurances do we have that come May or June, this isn't going to come before us again with another request to increase if there are more unforeseen circumstances?
Well, I'm not sure we can give you that assurance. If unforeseen circumstances arise again, it could come back. Now, we're hoping, optimistic that that's not going to happen, but we're further along. I mean, one thing is that we're further along with the project, much further along than we were before, so the chances of finding something unexpected are probably lower. Would you agree with that, Ms. Correa?
I don't know what's underneath the north side roadway. And so, because when you're looking at the design that the city has of what is underneath the roadway, not everything is called out. And so in order to fix that, we have to dig it up. And then once we dig it up, we're not sure what's there. However, the outcome is positive, which is now there's a diagram that says what exactly is under there and where it's located for people in the future to be able to have it. So that is definitely a positive for the outcome of the project.
Thank you.
Alderman Cathay.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. In finding out these issues with the construction, were any of the parties in breach of contract with the delays? And if so, if it was the construction company, would we be entitled to any sort of recourse for that?
The contract does have liquidated damages called out in it of $100 a day. And it's a matter, the city has the opportunity or the option to negotiate in regards to what the next steps would be. And if we felt as though the city council needed to be brought in to take a look at the contract deeper to make sure that what are our options, and that's definitely if the project is not moving forward. And if the contractor had any questions about the city, and whether or not delays were due to unforeseen reasons for them. We want to make sure that we have that conversation so that we can move the project forward or have those discussions to see what the options are. And so repercussion-wise, we would rather try to work together to move the project forward. And there are times when liquidated damages are imposed upon a contract, yes. In this case, they have not been to date.
Follow up, Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Thank you. In your opinion, do you feel like there was a breach of like a breach of the contract, or do you feel like the city should or would move towards liquidated damages? And would that happen now or after this new agreement? As you're seeing the project or you're closer to it, what is your general sense of what happened? Because like Alderman Como, it does seem like there is at least a probability that it could happen again, and then we're back at the same spot, and I would like to prevent that as much as possible.
Well, we have weekly meetings with the contractor and with the engineering firm. Also, we have people within the city that attend the meetings so that we can make sure that we look at it from different perspectives. The transit center was erected in 1999. Not very many things have been done to it since then. And one example is the wiring. Over the years, many things have been done to the wiring. And when you look at the box where the wiring is located, there's a lot of wiring in there. Not all of it is labeled. So that would be an opportunity for us to make sure that we get the wiring right. And when we move forward with reopening the transit center on the one side, that particular part is done, is ready for the future. Because we want to make sure that this building can last us for quite some time. We want the workmanship to be right. And along the project, if there have been any hiccups, it has been a constant communication. In regards to breach of contract, that is not for me to determine. That would be for the city council person to determine. And we have made sure that there has been communication just in general to the mayor's office, and just to be updating where we are and how we're progressing. If we got to the point where the project was not progressing, I believe that city council would take that deeper dive into the contract to make sure that the communication was there as to what that next step is for the contractor. Does that make sense?
That does make sense. I appreciate that.
Absolutely.
Anyone else? Alderwoman Khalid.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm on the Joint Special School Board, School Building, committee. And one of the things, we have that large school project that we're doing. And one of the things is that sometimes they have to come in, because much like this, they find something that wasn't there. But when they come into something of a not to exceed and so on, it's still within the overall budget of the project. Is this still within the budget of the project? Or are you now outside of the budget of the project?
So the contract amendment would be in addition to the original contract. And so we've secured funds through the Federal Transit Administration to pay for the contract amendment. And so that again is a 80-20, and the 20%, which is local, is coming out of the NTS operating reserve to pay for that.
May I follow up, Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Thank you. So just to clarify, the additional money is $116,866,000, but 20% of that will come out of the city's budget, or in
The
your budget.
NTS operating reserve.
And the other 80% will come out of
Federal Transit Administration
the Federal
grant.
Transit Administration. So in a little excess of 20,000 or 21,000 will come from the city's budget, not the 116,000, correct?
And this project is not in our budget. This is a special project. And so it's a special project that we requested additional funds for, because this is a grant that already existed.
Mm-hmm.
And then to make sure that we covered the expenses, we requested an amendment to a grant to pay for this.
Thank you very much.
Absolutely.
Alderman Como.
I'll try to be briefer than the first question. I just want to make sure I understand the parties. So my initial thought was that this was all part of the contracting, but if I understand you correctly now, the engineer is independent of the contractors, so this is less the contractors asking for an increase because they've gone over their estimate. It's more the engineer doesn't really have a whole lot of control over how long it's taking the contractor to complete the job. And now if we want the services of that engineer to continue, we're just adding time. It's not that the initial contract is now more expensive. It's just that we're adding term onto the end of it. Do I understand that correctly?
And also an additional fee. So the initial fee was approximately $120,000 for 17 weeks because you have an engineer on site 8 hours a day. And what we did do was we cross-compared as a cost estimate to another architectural/engineering contract that the city has to make sure that the pricing is in line. And that's not a contract that we're going into that the pricing would be higher for one or another. So it's in line. I also pulled the data in general as to what the average price is for the construction administration from an engineering company and architectural design to just do that review and make sure that the costs are in line. I also have to do that for the Federal Transit Administration when they come in to review the project. They're going to want to know that we didn't just say, just do this for us. We wanted to make sure that the price was negotiated, the hours were there, and there could be a cost savings and not spent depending upon how many hours are spent on the project.
Thank you.
So it could go both ways, right? The extension or cost savings. Thank you for the questions.
Mr. Mayor?
Alderman Jettie.
Mr. Mayor, I apologize to Alderman Tebow. I just noticed that he's with us by Zoom. I didn't notice him at the beginning of the meeting, and forgive me, Alderman Tebow, for not noticing you, but this is my first time, so.
Oh, it's okay.
I don't know when you got here.
He
but-
was there at the beginning.
Right from the beginning.
From the beginning? Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
We'll forgive you this time, Alderman Jettie.
Thank you.
All right. Anyone else? All right. Could the clerk please call the roll?
Alderman Clee,
Yes.
Alderman Kathy,
Yes.
Alderman Como,
Yes.
Alderman Gouveia,
Yes.
Alderman Jettie votes yes, Alderwoman Timmons,
Yes.
Mayor Donches.
Yes.
7 yeses, 0 nays.
And the contract is approved. Thank you very much. Next item is also Kelly Parkinson, Purchasing Manager. Alderman Jettie.
Regarding server upgrade in the amount not to exceed $141,840.75, funded from 81342 SURF IT. I move to accept, place on file, and award a bid to Dell Technologies for the purchase of 15 new servers to upgrade the virtual host servers at the city's primary data center and begin the build-out of the disaster recovery site in an amount not to exceed $141,840.75. Funding will be through Department 122, Information Technology, Fund Account 81342 SURF, by roll call.
And we have Mr. Misevich of IT here. Nick Misevich.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Nick Miserich, Chief Information Officer for City of Nashua. This project was actually requested by Mayor Donches back in fiscal year 20. And unfortunately, we could not start it at that point in time because that's when we were hit with COVID. And as everyone's aware, everything just went crazy for the following year. So we are able to now get back to that and proceed with implementing that disaster recovery site. I am looking to replace all of the servers, not just the ones for the disaster recovery site, to get everything consistent and also to streamline the process of upgrading our virtual software. So if I have all the servers now, I can build a brand new environment and then migrate everything at the end instead of doing it piecemeal throughout a several month time. So it's going to reduce the time of implementation from several months down to several weeks. And this happens to be Dell's year end. So we are getting extremely aggressive pricing such that this pricing is less than what their VARs or value-added resellers can get. Excuse me. And so the savings is over 20,000. So we're basically getting 2 servers for free.
Now explain a little bit about the disaster recovery aspect of the project.
The city currently does not have a disaster recovery site, so if something happens to our primary data center, that's it. We cannot operate. We can't do anything. We can't process payroll. We can't process tax bills. We can't do motor vehicle registrations. The city's pretty much dead in the water.
And for example, if we were hacked and like some communities have been and ransom is requested, we need a backup site so that we can duplicate what was there despite the interference by a criminal hacker.
Correct. We can go to a previous point in time before the damage was occurred and get up and running in a short amount of time.
And this is going to be located away from City Hall and separate, not connected to the normal IT system, so that it couldn't be, so that a hacker would not enter, hacking the main system wouldn't have access to this backup site.
There will be network connectivity, but it will be disabled until needed.
Correct, all right.
So they will not be able to get to the backup site.
Alderwoman Cleave.
Thank you, Mr. Misevich. In a previous lifetime, I worked for the Department of Veterans Affairs. I worked in their ID department, and we had an offsite. We used another VA, and they might use us and so on. And we did it as oftentimes the physical offsite was to protect it, and God forbid, I don't hate to say this out loud, but if anything physically happened to this building and so on, it protected us and gave us a whole nother backup, as well as not just for someone hacking our system, but for someone physically infiltrating our system if they got into the ID department and so on. That is also part of this whole plan?
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? Alderwoman Timmons.
Thank you, Mayor Sanchez. I have one question. The backup site, is that one location within the city, or you're looking outside of the city?
It is within the city.
The one location?
Correct. One location.
Alderman Govea.
Yes, just one quick question. So of the 15 servers, how many are for just the primary use and how many for the disaster recovery?
10 for the primary, 5 for the DR site.
Okay, thank you.
Alderwoman Timmons.
I do have one question. You said there's 2 of them, 2 of the servers will be free, right? So you have 15 plus 2, or is it 13 plus 2?
Well, I'm buying 15, but the pricing that they're giving us, we're effectively getting 2 for free.
Okay.
For the regular price.
Okay.
I see Alderman Kathy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a sort of a inquisitive question about the servers. How long do you expect them to last? I know the old ones you said are 10 plus years old. Is that a typical lifespan, or how long do you expect before another upgrade would then be needed?
Generally, servers should be upgraded every 5 years, but the city doesn't have the operating budget to do that. So we get every ounce of life out of these as we can. So that's why I target 10 years, and anything over 10 years is, we're really pushing the boundaries.
Alderman Govea.
Just a follow-up on the breakdown of servers. So if 10 are the primary servers and 5 are backups, what data is primarily in the backup servers, and which data would you lose by not having the same amount of servers as both the backup and primary?
We lose all of our testing environments, which are not needed during a disaster recovery situation, and that is the primary difference.
Thank you.
Alderwoman Clee.
Thank you. Again, Mr. Meiserovich, just also for clarification on that, the reason you need less servers in a recovery system is because they're just holding data and they're not actually doing any of the work. It's not people trying to go back and forth and get information and so on. So you would, and you don't need to have a lot of empty space for that. Is that correct? So that, I'm just asking this so that people understand why we have 10 and only 5 in a backup.
Yeah, no, that's not the case. The reason why we have a reduced number is because we would be using at a reduced capacity. So like I mentioned, we wouldn't have any of the test servers at the DR site. Any testing would be on hold until we get back to normal operations. So the disaster recovery site is just what we need to get by for city business. So instead of having, a cluster of servers doing one thing, we'd be down to one server doing for that particular application.
Thank you.
Alderman Kathy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. You mentioned the time frame of in a matter of weeks. Do you have an estimation for the actual time it would take or the completion date?
Ooh. I don't have an exact date because we aren't even receiving these until the May timeframe. That's how far out they are due to the current state of shipping. So I started with the servers because they are the furthest delay. Then I will be coming back to this committee for the storage, for the switching and networking, and then finally for the fiber, in that order.
Thank you.
I don't see anyone else. Could the clerk please call the roll?
From that discussion, it sounds like I should upgrade my Windows 95.
A little bit.
Alderman Clee,
Yes.
Alderman Kathy,
Yes.
Alderman Como,
Yes.
Alderman Gouveia,
Yes.
Alderman Jettie votes yes, Alderwoman Timmons,
Yes.
Mayor Donches.
Yes,
7 yeas, 0 nays.
and the motion passes. Unfinished business, we have none. New business resolutions, none. New business ordinances, none. Record of expenditures. Alderman Jettie.
Mr. Mayor, I move that the Finance Committee has complied with the city charter and ordinances pertaining to the record of expenditures for the period from January 1, 2022 to January 13, 2021 by roll call.
Now, at the beginning, the question regarding what the record of expenditures is came up, which I did not answer. I forgot about the question until now. The record of expenditures is the list of all checks written by the city over the period of time defined, which is usually half a month, including payroll. Now, normally the CFO, now treasurer as well, John Griffin, is here to answer any questions about this, but he is out, ill, and therefore could not attend tonight's meeting. But if you do have questions about individual checks, because there are thousands of them, it's better if you ask them in advance so that he can research it, you know, because he can't answer thousands of checks, you know, necessarily just off the cuff. And, but the procedure is that to approve the list of checks that have been written. That's what's being asked. Any questions, comments? Could you please call the roll, Mr. Clerk?
Alderman Clee,
Yes.
Alderman Kathy,
Yes.
Alderman Como,
Yes.
Alderman Gouveia,
Yes.
Alderman Jettie votes yes, Alderwoman Timmons,
Yes.
Mayor Donches.
Yes,
7 yeas, 0 nays.
and the motion is approved. General discussion, is there any general discussion?
Mr. Mayor?
Alderwoman Clee.
Thank you. I just, more for education, and please, Mr. Mayor, correct me if I'm wrong. I just wanted to clarify that we talked about earlier that anything that is less than $25,000 comes to us as more information and so on. However, if there's an amendment to it, say there was a $24,000 contract, an amendment brought it up over $25,000, then it comes to this committee for approval. We would not allow them to do 10,000, 10,000, 10,000 till they had a $100,000 type of thing. If in total that project comes to, or the contract comes over 25,000, it will come back here. That is correct, Mr. Mayor, is that right?
Yes.
And the other thing about the signing of the record of expenditures, we do all sign that at the end of the meeting. And Alderman Kathy, when you received the copy of this, we all did an email. There's also a cover sheet that you can sign and mail in so that this finance committee will have signed off on this record of expenditure.
So we pass it around after the meeting. Any other comments, questions? Oh, we're in general discussion. Anyone else? All right, we'll go to public comment. Is there any member of the public who wants to address the committee? I don't see
I
anything.
don't see anybody.
Pardon?
I see no one.
Remarks by Alderman? Any Alderman want to make remarks?
Mr. Mayor?
Alderman Jettie.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to thank the new members. We're all new members except for Alderman Clee, but the new Alderman, Alderwoman at large Timmons and Alderman Gouveia and Alderman Como were here bright and early, very eager to assume their duties on the committee, and I appreciate their enthusiasm. And I'd like to thank you, Mayor, for taking the time to explain to us in detail what the role of the committee is and pointing us in the right direction as far as getting more information. And lastly, I learned, I think we all learned today that that our legislative assistant, Donna Graham, lost her father a couple of days ago. And so extend condolences to her and her family.
All right, any other comments? Alderman Como.
Just real briefly, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Regarding what we were talking about earlier, as far as whether we need, division heads and people to come in and speak on specific items, I was actually inclined to think that it may not be as necessary as, has been in the past, until going through this meeting, and now I've kind of seen more of the value. I know I got a lot of questions answered that I found very helpful, so I've almost changed my mind on that to the point where I can see the value in that, and I would like to see that continue, unless something comes up that's so obvious that we really feel a consensus that we don't need too much discussion on it. I can see the benefit in having people come and speak on these items.
And I had the same thought, especially given the depth of the questions. I couldn't answer all those questions, so we're going to have to bring people in to answer them. Yes. Alderman Kathy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would like to echo Alderman Como's thoughts. I was also leaning away from having people come in just because I do want to respect the other department's time. I know they work hard, and then having to come to meetings at night and answer a bunch of questions could be very tiresome, but I did find a lot of the answers that I received were extremely helpful, especially since a lot of us are new and are going to have a lot of questions about probably a lot of very specific nitty-gritty type of things that we don't really understand yet. And so I would probably lean towards having the department people either at the meeting or very accessible, or I don't really know. what
Okay,
the
but that's no
alternative would be.
problem. That's what we'll do from now on. That's, so we'll just proceed as we have. If they're very minor items, maybe not, but that's probably the exception rather than the rule. So, we'll just, we appreciate the questions. And the advantage of having the people come in is that you get to meet these people. You can see that they're pretty, you'll find that most or all are very competent, know what they're doing. And that's an advantage of having them come in. And I've always found that aldermen trust, believe them more than they believe me. So so I like it when they come in. But I just wanted to at least express the point of view that for some people who come in to various meetings, not just here repeatedly, it can be a difficult burden with families and like. All right, any other remarks by aldermen? All right, no non-public session. Alderwoman Clee.
Yes, Mr. Mayor. I move to adjourn the Finance Committee at 8:21
Mr. Clerk?
by roll call.
Alderman Clee,
Yes.
Alderman Kathy,
Yes.
Alderman Como,
Yes.
Alderman Gouveia,
Yes.
Alderman Jettie votes yes, Alderwoman Timmons,
Yes.
Mayor Donches.
Yes.
7 yeas, 0 nays.
And the meeting is adjourned at 8:22 PM.